and at least look for my discs.
Yeah. Go live. Do 5:45 Thursday.
Because I want that river back. If I get the Havoc back, that's cool, but I really want that river back.
Share this now. Wish I could find a really good way to share this on Instagram, but it is what it is. This is nice little lo-fi jazz.
Feel relaxed?
Not jazz, but
I want to welcome everyone to worship this evening.
Welcome everyone.
This is embrace the spirit.
And here on Behind the Beards, we pull the curtain back. I feel like we're about to get into some ASMR stuff.
And I know you've been hurt by other podcasts in the past. Just lift it up. Just give all those likes and subscribes. You don't need those in your life anymore.
Everybody, there's somebody in the room tonight. And I know this is the word that you need to hear, and I'm talking to you.
And leave those words in the
pause the music for a second. Pause the music for a second.
That's right.
I can't hear.
And leave those words down in the comment section below.
Healed. Fulfilled.
Let us know how we can serve your community and your church. This is bad. These are bad jokes. Sorry, everybody. These are bad jokes. You can let us know in the comment section below.
Like, comment, share.
That's the kind of music it sounds like, though.
It does.
It's like straight up, like.
Oh, I wrestle. I mean, here's what I know. I know that setting a mood and an atmosphere is important.
Yeah.
But I think there is a point at which it can so easily become emotional manipulation.
Oh, totally.
And it's a hard balance to maintain in giving people a genuine space to truly kind of think and reflect, and without, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Good thing I don't have to have all the answers, right?
Well, we always have to you have to really think about I think about a lot of that kind of stuff, and I think about what is church? What is corporate worship? What is it that we're trying to accomplish and do? And if those are the things you're trying to accomplish and do, and I'm not here to talk about whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying if that's what you're trying to accomplish, then that's what you're succeeding in, or that's what you're going for. And so, I truly do believe that the kingdom of God can be found in multiple places, in church settings like that. And different people are going to be convicted in different ways to be a part of a community to build them closer to Christ. I mean, that is what the kingdom of God is. That is what the church's call is to do, is to walk together, bring each other on this journey to be transformed to be more like Jesus. And there are some places that people are going to be able to do that in these kind of scenarios, and there's other places where people, aren't going to be able to feel that way, and not be able to do that. And so it's trying to figure out what is best for your community and for your church family to create an environment and a culture where people are holding each other accountable in their faith walk towards Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think you have to recognize that there are people that come that are already um, in a place of fragility, sometimes emotionally, sometimes spiritually.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
And I think especially when we were working with kids. I mean, kids are already in such a questioning place.
yeah,
But even in a lot of our situations, there are a lot of adults that are coming in, and they already are in a place emotionally
yeah,
where they're so, I don't want to say open, but sometimes their spirits are so broken that they are easily manipulated.
sure.
And even for good ends or good purposes, I don't ever want manipulation to be. I want people to come to that recognition genuinely, and that's for me. That's the hard balance to walk. Is I want to provide an atmosphere for you to truly question the things that are in your soul and in your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I want you to come to that point when you're ready to come to that point, so
Mm-hmm.
that you never actually can look back and question, well, man, was that genuine or something? I don't know, man. It's hard.
And for me, so like, you know me, I'm like super pro manipulation. That's what I, break them, dunk them, fix them. That's my
Um,
lifestyle. Um,
Sarcasm heavy there, in case you don't.
Super heavy sarcasm. Uh, but there's also, uh, what was I going to say? I guess I see Sunday morning corporate worship is a vital aspect to the healthy life of a Christian. However, I do not believe that it is where transformation happens for someone to fully decide and walk
Oh yeah,
with Christ. I believe it happens in Bible communities. I believe whether that looks like small groups or social groups or service projects or other things like that, where you hang out and you do life together with other Christians. And so, what corporate worship looks like on Sunday, I think, needs to be a place where people can come and be vulnerable and worship God. And that can look like different ways, I guess.
yeah.
But I think you can have just the amount of pew fillers in any scenario. People who
For
come and
sure.
sit uh, and never feel convicted or changed or do anything to be more like Jesus, that they've made it, that they're content, or that they are doing enough.
Yeah.
Uh, so I had to like really look up and focus there and get that down. This is not what we're talking about today on the podcast at all.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for beer.
Hey, good morning, everybody. If you listen to the pre-show, there's nothing like going from that lo-fi music to that Behind the Beards intro. This is Behind the Beards. We're glad you joined us. Man, this is a podcast where Aaron and I kind of try to pull the curtain back, take a look behind the scenes, and really do our best to reveal the things that go on in the hearts and minds of your ministers and ministry leaders. We have made a little bit of a shift this season, and we're really trying to get into some more practical things, not only as ministers, but just for our Christian community, how we can become more like Christ each and every day and put those things into practice. I'm a family minister, family connections minister. Aaron is a youth minister, and we are in Longview, Texas, the Pine Tree Church of Christ. We're really happy that you've decided to join us here on this podcast. Man, it's been some beautiful days here in deep East Texas. Had some days of some sunshine. Finally got a little break from the rain. Had to play a little disc golf this past weekend. And just some good stuff going
Really gonna
on.
bring that up, huh?
Hey, I wasn't going into details. I'm just saying we got
There
to
it is.
go out and play.
Mm-hmm.
Man, how'd Sunday night go? I know you had a big deal going Sunday night with your getting your kids ready for the summer.
Yeah,
It was a pretty exciting time.
yeah, went good.
Tell our folks about that.
Nah.
Nah.
No, it was good. No, it went really good. We have based off of David Blanchard, and he did a class on this so many years ago. I don't even remember how long ago it was, but he did a group on Sherpa groups or Sherpas, and so I've kind of tried to run with that here. I dusted those flyers off, that whatever I had from him, and anyway, we do those. So we did our last Sherpa groups of the season. We'll take a break for summer, but we did a foot washing, and it was kind of cool. I prepped the teenagers, and I never asked the teenagers to do anything I wouldn't willingly do myself, and so I washed our Sherpa's feet in front of them. But we did it in a different manner because I didn't want, it's such a cultural stretch for our kids and for our people to do that. So we changed it up. I put some buckets on the stage and had our Sherpas soak their feet while I gave a little talk, and then I just dried their feet and anointed their feet. And then they busted off into their Sherpa groups, and they kind of talked about that humbling experience and what Jesus really shows in his life as far as service when it comes to washing his apostles' feet while they all soaked their feet in a kiddie pool. And after that, they came in and we did this communion-esque kind of thing with some ice water where they drank it after declaring that they would do an act or multiple acts of service this summer in the places that they're going, whether it be Deer Run or Soul Quest or Netz's Camp or Netz's Days or VBS or really anything that's on the table. So for me, I thought it went really well, and it was really cool. I did not expect how much you want to drink or take a sip out of ice water,
A cold water that's in your hand.
of cold ice water that you have in your hand. Because I told them not to take a sip until I told them to. And for me, I was like, man, I had to stop myself a couple times because I naturally just wanted to be like sip it. And so it was kind of really interesting that almost like teaching yourself to crave wanting to serve somebody else or do service. So it was cool. I think it went really well. We had a good amount. We had like 35 kids there, which is about average for us right now. So
That is cool. It's it's really important. We have these moments of summertime, especially. Everybody's in and out. A lot of people are active. Families are taking trips. Kids are at camp, and they're good activities. But because we're so frequently disconnected from those groups that anchor us and kind of keep us accountable, it's really good to have those things that kind of call us back to the commitment that we live with. So, the emphasis of, hey, we're going to take this, and then this summer, every time you drink cold water, you're going to be reminded of this commitment that you made.
that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's good to have in marriages and families too, and something that we really need to be a little more intentional about. So I was excited to hear about it. I was excited to hear it went well. I think it's a really cool deal.
Yeah, going well.
But we are talking today about weakness and vulnerability. Two of my favorite things. Two of my favorite things. We've been going through emotionally healthy discipleship, and that's kind of made me really confront some stuff I knew, some stuff I knew but didn't do very well. A couple of things, I was already kind of implementing, but really it's been a pretty good reminder and convictor of some things and I guess really and truly it's stuff that we preach and teach a lot. It's hard sometimes to envision how that kind of really comes into practice, just as a Christian, but especially as a minister. So, vulnerability. I guess specifically in talking about leaders, vulnerability is a difficult concept, I guess, maybe to really kind of put into my head. because the people that I'm following, when I think from a secular point of view, like I think of like Storm and Norman. You know who Storm and Norman is? Maybe a little before your time.
Nope.
Norman Schwarzkopf. You know, he was a leader of the military when we went into Desert Storm, with back in the 90s. And I just think about that big, strong, decisive, powerful leader. And it's like, man, when things get mixed up, that's the guy. I'll follow that guy anywhere. And so in our culture, we don't really value meekness or weakness or vulnerability in our leaders.
Yeah.
And I think we've allowed that to kind of come over into our understanding of church leadership. And
there's probably a lot of bit of church history that goes into that, in the 90s, early 2000s, where there was the debate wars, and even before that, there's all these church debates and stuff like that. And so there's this ideology of like strength, of being right, is so strong that plays into, that idea that if you are, a church leader, that you are, there's no vulnerability, there's no cracks, there's no nothing. There's a line, and I walk on it, and there ain't nothing else I walk on except for that line, kind of idea.
Yeah, and it's such a dangerous place to be. And I've even found myself
kind of sucks
looking at other church leaders. I mean, when they get into moral failure, there are so many, especially early on in my ministry career, I would look at that and I would go, man, if that guy fell in that way, is there any hope for me?
Right.
Because that's the way we had put our church and our spiritual leaders, our leaders in this place that's just, it's impossible to fulfill. And I guess the question, and maybe it's twofold, maybe it comes from both places. Maybe as people, we've done that. And as leaders, maybe we've not only accepted that expectation, but maybe there's moments where we've actually encouraged that expectation by some of the things that we do and say and the way that we teach and preach. And so this idea of being vulnerable as a church leader, I think it really goes a long way to help letting our people know that we're one of you. We're on this struggle together. And I may be leading you down the road, but it's not because I've mastered it. It's just because I've been called to lead you here. And that's kind of where we get into Jesus' example of that servant leadership. And hopefully we have shepherds and elders that are being servant leaders.
But not only, like, what I love about this idea, this concept, is that, like, one of the things that I always tell our teenagers, what makes the Bible so believable? What makes the Old Testament stories so believable? And it's because you have these leaders who are absolutely, like, they fail.
Human.
They are so human, and they fail in such miserable ways. And yet over and over and over, the lesson of the Bible is it doesn't matter about you, it matters about God. It's not your strength that does anything, it's God's strength that kind of pulls us through that. And so it's such a hypocritical way of looking at our leaders to go, oh, our leaders are perfect, and we almost elevate them and place them on these pedestals, and we're like, they don't do anything wrong. Aaron doesn't ever curse in his head or in his heart or even a little bit out loud when he hits 4 trees in a frisbee golf hole, back to back to back. I was joking with some of our boys. I know we played this tournament, and it's such an awesome thing that we've started to do this second year we've done it, and I'm excited that we did it a second year. But 2 youth ministers, a college minister, and now a family minister, we signed up for this tournament together, and we just kick off our summer having a fun time playing in a frisbee golf tournament. And we get to playing, we're getting really competitive, we're getting in there, and I just have like the worst hole of my life. I mean, it's one of those holes where like and if you play golf or anything like that, it's like you hit a bad shot, you try to get out of the bad shot and it gets worse, right? And then you try to get out of that bad shot and
Usually
it gets
so.
worse. You get out of that bad shot and it gets worse, you know. And there's a couple moments where like you could see the steam coming out of my ears, you know. And I had to, and it was really cool. It was really cool. My friend KT was there, college minister at Shallow Road in Tyler. And he goes, "Hey, just shake it off. Like, just shake it off." And that didn't help at all.
That's not
You
what I
know?
was saying. I was saying, hit another one. I need all the room I can get.
Josh was laughing over there going, "Yes."
I was laughing.
Yes.
I actually wasn't cheering for you, but I was laughing pretty hard.
But anyway, but you know, so there was this moment where like I was super frustrated and I was getting really angry. And I was also extremely proud of myself because I didn't curse out loud, maybe in my head and that kind of stuff. But you know, like it's so silly for us to place our preachers or place our ministers on these pedestals and saying they are perfect. If I closed his hand in a car door, only blessings would come out of his mouth, you know, kind of an idea.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think as leaders, we are hesitant to embrace that vulnerability and to show our weakness because we're afraid of being judged by it.
Oh yeah.
You know, like in that moment when
And that's biblical. Right? There's well, what's that verse where it talks about like if you're teaching you will be judged.
Oh, yeah.
Where's that? Where is that? Why can't keep talking? I'm gonna find that.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me finish my thought. I appreciate the permission there. What was I saying? Oh yeah. It's hard for us to embrace that because I think we're concerned that people are going to kind of look at us and laugh at us. Like in that moment when you hit trees, I'm laughing, and it's easy for you to look and go, "Look at that, he's making fun of me." The truth is, I'm laughing because I've been there and I know what's going through your head, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm not alone." And in a way, it's funny to me because it's not me going through it, but it's not that I don't understand kind of what's going on there. And so I think that's where we come into recognizing that as leaders, we have to learn to embrace that. And we have to let people kind of look and laugh and then sit down and say, "Hey, you know what? This is who I am. I am a human and I am broken and I am on this road to fulfillment in Christ with you." I think the challenge is what we see is we see a lot of preachers and teachers as we I mean, I guess maybe kind of what we talked about before the podcast does fold into this a little bit because you can use some of that humanity as a way of manipulating people just to get to an end, not to be genuine.
Right. Yeah.
And so like when I share my failures, and I did something in class just on Sunday. I shared about a time where I completely missed the boat. I had a lady asked me for a Bible study. And instead of studying the Bible with her, I gave her my card and said, "Call me when you're ready." I didn't even give her the option of having a Bible study in that moment.
Right.
I didn't even ask, "Hey, is now a good time?" My motive was true, but I could have let her decide that. It was she and her friends were there and we were all kind of talking about it. I was actually doing a job for somebody else. That job could have been done another time.
Sure.
And so, but I shared that to just let people know. I think there's all kinds of times that we fail, but we're defined by how we respond to that failure. What do we learn from it? And do we continue to make that same mistake, or the next time it comes up, do we go, "Man, last time this happened, I didn't handle this very well. I'm going to do it differently this time." And so it's just a matter of we want to be genuine with people, not just trying to be a means to an end.
Yeah, that's true. Or not just like coming up with fake problems just to feel like we can connect, you know, with somebody, right?
Yeah, but fake vulnerability. That's always a problem.
Fake vulnerability.
Always trouble.
You know, you see sometimes you can see that like at youth rallies or something like that where someone is obviously trying too hard to really connect with the youth of today, or
or
something like
even
that.
or exaggerating,
Yes.
exaggerating my life. Like I've heard people that I know and I grew up with, and they talk about their upbringing. I'm like, bro, we went to school together. Like,
Right. No, you didn't.
you
You
did
didn't
not
go
do
through
that.
that.
I mean, I know it was hard, but it wasn't that hard.
Right. That's
So
right.
just being genuine in that, and I think recognizing also that being vulnerable, um, and admitting those moments where we are weak it doesn't make us less of a leader. Um,
Yeah, and it's also not like sharing our weaknesses to exploit others in that kind of a sense. And it's also not, praising our weaknesses as well. And so I think for me, like I'm such a skeptical person that anytime somebody gets up there and shares a weakness, it's because you're trying to exploit something or do something. But there is a balance here, and there's an argument to be made for, if you are a leader in a church, like maybe you should be like a little bit higher of a moral standard, that you should be, that's why we have qualities of a deacon and elders, that are listed in the scriptures as well. So I'm just trying to think of like other arguments on other sides where people might say, well, but if you are a leader, you should be, striving of a higher moral standard in a sense.
yeah, but so I mean, we're not talking about severe moral and ethical failure either, right? I mean,
That's true. We're not.
some of it is just simply admitting that we
Yeah.
struggle with things.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I lust is a temptation for me. Greed is a
Mhm.
temptation for me. Like all of these things that pull at all of the people that we are leading also tug at me as well. Um, Fame and popularity is a struggle for me to,
Mhm.
seeking likes, seeking admiration, seeking, a following, pride,
Right.
ego, greed, status. Uh, I wrestle with these things on a daily basis. And sometimes they get the best of me, sometimes they get the best of them. But just admitting, that and living in the midst of that is so important. Uh, and I think it is actually a part of God's real design for us as His people. Um, I don't know what Paul's thorn in the flesh was, but I
Right.
always come back to that in 2 Corinthians 12 and verse 9.
My verse was in James 3:1. Sorry, that was the one I
Yours,
was
oh,
thinking
okay.
of. I was like, what was that? Why can I not quote that?
Okay. But where Paul has that thorn in the flesh, he says, hey, 3 times I've asked for it to be taken, and 3 times God said, my grace is enough for you.
That's right. My
My
grace is
grace is
sufficient.
sufficient,
Well,
for
that
my
phrase,
power is made perfect in your weakness.
that's probably my all-time like most favorite. Like if I could put that in front of me every day just to remember, I think that's actually one of the phrases that I use for meditation.
Mhm.
There's a form of meditation where you repeat a phrase, and that's one of those phrases that helps get me into a meditative state, where I'm really like calm and relaxed and trying to listen to God. Is your grace is sufficient for me. Your grace is sufficient for me. So
Mhm.
anytime I hear the word sufficient, it kind of reminds me God's grace is sufficient for me. That's what I need. That's what
Yeah.
I need in life is God's grace. I don't need anything else. That's what I have, and that's what I need.
Yeah.
A lot
It's
of tangents today. Sorry, that's me.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because it really is that point where we get to.
Yeah.
I love the phrase that Scazzero used was embracing your limp
Oh
is a
yeah.
part of God's plan. I'm like, oh.
Hmm.
And I think about how many times we try to shield other people from seeing our weakness,
Yeah. Yes.
instead of surrounding us with people not to hide the weakness, but by saying, hey, there's some things that I'm not very good at, and so I need you to come in here and help shore up my weaknesses, and I'm going to put people around me, to I don't necessarily highlight it, but to take care of things that I know that I am not really designed to take care of. It creates this accountability. It creates, this sense of community as we work together. And I just think of all the ways that I try to kind of gloss over my weaknesses.
Right.
I know some people that are pretty good at reshaping their weaknesses and reframing. I think of Michael Scott, right? When he has his resume written up, and I consider my weaknesses my strengths, and he's, one of my weaknesses, I work too much. I'm too much of a
right. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm too committed. I work too much. I'm too committed, and I care too much.
And it's
I
one
hate
of the
that question.
questions
I also
people
I
are
don't know
afraid,
why.
right?
I don't know why I always hate that question. When I've interviewed for jobs, like I hate that question too, and maybe I hate it less now. When people are like, "What are your weaknesses?" Well, I can get defensive real quick. I've had like, let's be honest here. What are my weaknesses? I can get defensive real quick. I'm too pretty. No, I don't know. I would say that would probably be mine. Your Josh is like, I don't want to do this. Let's move on from this topic. But yeah, I always hated that question in interviews. But I think it does show some reality and some truth to whoever the person is that you're talking to, whether or not they give you like those real answers, or they give you like those like fake answers.
Yeah. Well, in an interview, it's a matter of trust.
Yeah.
Because usually in an interview, you're dealing with people that you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get a job.
Right.
Or
so you want to show
something.
them your absolute best.
And so the question is, can I trust you with my weakness? And I kind of want to say, so, hey, what's the follow-up question? Because I can tell you my weaknesses, but are you going to give me an opportunity to tell you how I protect myself against those, especially when it comes to work? Or are you going to use them against me and say, well, that guy's got weaknesses, we're not going to hire him?
That's right.
And hopefully we have enough trust. And maybe that's where it begins. It's just building trust with our people so that we create an environment that allows people to admit where they are weak so God can go to work. That may have been my biggest growth point when I moved to Kansas. It was humbling. It was humbling to go into youth ministry because I didn't feel called there. I didn't feel gifted there. I didn't feel confident in myself to be able to really connect with youth. I mean, I know how to deal with my
hard.
Kids. They are hard.
And what rough.
Just kidding, what I learned in those, 5 years, 2 years, part-time and 3 years full-time, I learned how to do my best and then turn it over and say, here's what I got. It's not enough. And so I need the Spirit to show up in some miraculous ways to do something with my meager offering. And he did. He did sometimes in miraculous ways. He also did by bringing other people into my life. We had you that came in and Bryce that came in. And I mean, between the three of us, I mean, we put some good stuff out there for those kids. And so much of it centered around just, hey, we're going to do our best. We're going to cover it in prayer. We're going to turn it over to God, and we're going to count on God to really move in the lives of these kids, these people before us. And
that's right.
And I think there's so much that just comes from being to that place where we just simply put our best out and then ask God to go to work and do something with it.
And just do it.
Embracing your limp. I like you've seen the kintsugi art, Japanese art, haven't you?
Man, that's like one of my all-time favorites. And it
Yeah.
talks, and I love it when people connect that with jars of clay. We're just jars of clay.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful and powerful. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I know you've that's an example that you've used for a long time. So when he used it in the book, I was like, oh yeah, Aaron's used that stuff a lot.
I have actually. I just recently, well, not recently. I think like last summer, I used that. That imagery. Um,
Have
that
you ever done
artwork
it?
is so. I've never. No, I don't have any gold.
It doesn't have to be gold.
Hello. No, I've never done it before. I've seen people take like a photo of themselves, and you rip it up, and then you put it back together, and you on those rips or whatever you use like a gold pen or something like that, and
Hmm.
that stuff's really cool. But so if you don't know, if you guess you don't know what it is, we should probably define that or talk about that for our viewers. You're trying to find a picture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead. You can explain it.
So Kasugi and is this? It's this really beautiful art style that is based in Japan, but it's the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery by mending areas that are broken with lacquer dusted or a mixture of powder with gold or silver or platinum. And so what they do is if you have a bowl and you drop it and it shatters everywhere, they put it back together. But the glue and the mending materials that they use to put it back together are more valuable than the bowl itself. So then when the bowl is back together, it looks beautiful. It looks gorgeous, and the bowl is more valuable than when it was before. So instead of those imperfections, instead of those cracks making the bowl or object cheaper and worse, which is like how we do things today, uh, instead that bowl has now become extremely more valuable
Hmm.
because of the imperfections that it has. And so that's what that art style is. And so it pairs very nicely when we talk about jars of clay and stuff like that. Um, and so then having that wabi sabi is the Japanese phrase, and I know I butchered that, and I apologize. You can obviously tell that I'm not Japanese, but the wabi sabi he referenced that idea. But wabi sabi is the view or thought of finding um, beauty in every aspect of imperfections in nature. So,
Hmm.
and actually, this has nothing. This kind of connects with that. But when they first originally were doing CGI and they were trying to CGI the human face, the problem that people were having with CGI'd faces was the fact that they were too perfect. They were too perfect, and so nature has this way. God has this way of in His creation uh, for like there's beauty in the imperfections in nature. That's what makes
Yeah.
it beautiful. That's what makes it stand out. That's what makes it this way. If you ever watch Bob Ross and he paints some trees, he's like, "It's okay. It can go this way. Oh, we never mess up. These are just happy little
That's right. Happy
accidents,
little
right?"
accidents. That's
The
right.
imperfections is this wabi sabi way of looking at things and going, "It's beautiful in its imperfections." Um, the non-Japanese phrase for that my mom would use is, "Oh, it's fine. It's shabby chic." That's what
Shabby
my mom
chic.
would.
Yeah.
That is my mom would say that all the time, as we had like weird stuff in our lawn that looked very beautiful and very nice, and people would be like, "That's so pretty. How'd you?" She's like, "Oh yeah, that's just my way. It's just shabby chic."
Yeah.
And so
It's
I
awesome.
just now thought of that. That's kind of
Well,
funny.
it's not a foreign thing either, even in
No,
Western culture, because what are the most valuable coins? The most valuable
mm,
coins are the one where in one printing session there was a mistake in the press,
that's right. An imperfection. Hmm.
and there's an imperfection. There's something that is different. It makes it unique. Baseball cards the same way. You can
Hmm.
have a card that is of a player that is just a common card, But if there was a run of prints where there was an error on one of the cards, and then every time they would put out something in the book there, the Beckett guide, I'd be going through all my cards going, ooh, I have that year, is mine an error? No, it was never an error. I wasn't that fortunate to have something that valuable.
Same with Pokemon cards. Just saying, people out there.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Any card collectors, really. Any coin collectors, all sorts of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes those things, it gives them a unique quality. And somehow I think we've moved past that when it comes to recognizing humanness. And often in our humans that we're following, we expect an unfair level of perfection.
Yeah.
And what we need to recognize is, both as leaders and as people, that there is so much grace to be found in seeing what God can do in the midst of our weakness. There's so much power to be found in seeing what God can do in the midst of my weakness. Mm-hmm. Like I love Moses' story. I mean, I connect with Moses. He was put in a river when he was a baby. He was found by the Pharaoh's daughter, raised in the Pharaoh's palace. He was educated in the military, educated in language. He had a position of power and influence in being raised in Pharaoh's house. And so why wouldn't he think that God expected him to deliver the people? Because he was also allowed to continue to connect with his Hebrew upbringing. And so he says, oh yeah, God put me here for this. And he takes matters in his own hands, and God says, nope, we're not going on your power. And after 40 years in the desert, when God appears to him in a burning bush, Moses says, hey, I'm not your guy. It says, you weren't ready 40 years ago, but now you have all the training, all the skill, and now you have the humility to recognize that it's going to be through me that these people are set free. And so then he goes to Egypt and delivers Israel. And so there's something about that state of humility that just allows God to work, that we strive to be in. Kintsugi and wabi-sabi. Remember it. There's beauty in brokenness.
Shabby chic.
Shabby chic. Find find the ways in which you can look at that, the oddities in nature and the things around you and the people around you.
Or in the mirror. Mirror. It's okay to look in the mirror. That's right. The behind the beards moment is, Aaron, you are beautiful without your beard as well. But it's really this good idea. I think for me, like when I really think of when I think of those examples, it's the fact that I am a broken pot, and what makes me so great is not the fact that I put myself back together. It's the fact that God puts me back together. And when God is woven in between your imperfections and is holding you together by his Spirit and his word, that's what makes you beautiful, is Christ living with you and in your life. And you know how do you live that way? How do you have that in your life? Well, you do it by practicing Galatians 6:9. You do that by not growing weary and doing good, allowing Christ to use you, allowing the gold and that beautiful of Christ's grace and his mercy and his truth and his power living within you to give you the strength to do something good. And so we're grateful for you all to be here today at Behind the Beards. Right. Whether you're listening or watching later or whatever it is, we're grateful for you to be here today. And we want to challenge you to remember Galatians 6:9 and do something good. Not in your name, not in your broken pot pieces, but in this beautiful picture in which God has created. Josh hates everything I'm saying.
No, I don't. Just laughing at pot pieces.
Pot pieces. Hey, we love you all, and we'll see you next week on Behind the Beards.
Last word.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Oh, it's good stuff, man. No, I was laughing. You watch
I like
Sam
I like
Moss
how
TikTok?
maybe.
He does the youth ministry fails.
Oh,
And
yeah,
people
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
right
yeah.
into him.
He
The one I
just reads
saw,
them.
the one I saw yesterday was my greatest youth ministry fail was we were playing kickball or wiffle ball with his youth group. And they're playing boys against girls, and he said, "Oh man, Eric just wants to get to third base, but none of the girls will let him." Because all the kids started laughing, and he goes, "I didn't even hear what I said until somebody reminded me," and I was like, "Oh no."
I hate teenagers.
I hate teenagers, and sometimes we are
That's
them
so
when you
funny.
say things like pot pieces and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's the way it is. So,
Oh
I
man,
mean,
good stuff. See y'all
good
later.
stuff. See ya.